Good afternoon and welcome to SBAM Small Business Briefing. I'm Sarah Miller, Vice President of Marketing and Strategic Communications for SBAM. And I am joined today by my co-host Kelli Saunders, filling in for Brian Callie. We'll get to her in just a minute. As we always do on Mondays, we want to welcome one of our newest members, Central Kitchen and Bar. They're located in Detroit. So thank you to Christy Tester-Cook, the general manager, and Dennis Archer Jr., the managing partner, for joining us. And of course, we're welcoming them on behalf of our sponsor, Consumers Credit Union. You can learn more about them at consumerscu.org. So Brian is actually at a conference in Washington, D.C. today. And so we have our returning co-host, Kelli Saunders, here. And Kelli, you just made it back for the briefing. Let us know where you've been today.
Yeah, well, it's kind of exciting. We were welcoming a new member from Detroit since I just came from Detroit. We obviously love our biggest city here in Michigan, and I'm happy to be with you today in place of Brian. So for those of you who don't know, I serve on the Michigan Women's Commission. That is a appointed position by the governor. I was appointed back in 2018 by Governor Snyder and then reappointed by Governor Whitmer a year or two ago. And so what the Women's Commission does is they survey the women of Michigan and then work with the governor and also state departments to advance different initiatives based out of what they're hearing from women in Michigan. So I'm sure many of you listening are thinking, what does that have to do with SBAM? Well, I love it when my service to Michigan also collides with work. And if you recall, back in the pandemic, there was a big spotlight put on how much of a childcare need there was. And so, as you recall, SBAM has supported the birth of a program called TriShare, which is shared by the employee, the employer, and the state of Michigan, each paying a third to help people get back into workforce and help cover childcare needs. And so I was one of the people that helped spearhead that from the Women's Commission, and that program was actually housed within the Women's Commission once it was up and running. It'll soon be transferred over to the new department that the governor created called My Leave, which is really exciting because it was never meant to be kept within the Michigan Women's Commission forever. And so it's a great step forward. Now the Women's Commission is starting to focus on another path for how to get women into higher wage paying jobs through apprenticeships. And so today we had a roundtable in Detroit at Accenture, and Governor Whitmer joined us, the Women's Commission, and some stakeholders to talk about how to bring more awareness to women on how to get involved in apprenticeships. And Accenture has a wonderful program that they've started called the Michigan Apprenticeship Network. It is supported by the state of Michigan, Accenture, and a couple other founding companies. And I think we can drop the link to that website if anyone is interested. They're actually looking for more companies to join this collaboration, as it is a tool to use for employers, career seekers, and people who run apprenticeship programs. And so we talked about that today and how women technically only make up 10% of those enrolled in apprenticeships right now. And as we know, during the pandemic, the demographic that left the workforce in order to help take care of their kids or their families, parents at home, were women. And now, as we've come out of the pandemic, women are looking to get back into the workforce. And so this is a great way to upskill, also for companies to find employees to bring into their workforce. And so it was a really great conversation. Started in Detroit today, that they will be hosting roundtables all over the state. And so we'll keep you informed about where those are. But it would be great for you to get involved, if you want to increase your workforce, if apprenticeships are the way for you to go, to tap into this network. And so we like to bring you tools, new tools that you can seek and look into and maybe become a part of if it's something that is in your wheelhouse. What I love about the connection with this is too, A couple weeks ago in Bridge Magazine, our very own Jenny Shiro was highlighted because she started her own apprenticeship program, Fenton Winery and Brewery. And so she's a great example about how she's giving back to talent. She's not just a talent seeker, she's a talent creator. And that was another topic that was talked about today, is that people, employers are constantly looking for talent, but there's an idea about not just seeking talent, but helping talent move along. And so Jenny's a wonderful example of that. There are so many of you that do the same. We'd like to highlight and uplift you too. And so bringing this to the table, seeing this initiative take off and how we can tackle this population decrease, talent here at home, how to get them back in the pipeline, are all key parts of how we get Michigan back on track, looking towards the future. And so it was great to be with my fellow women's commissioners today, but also representing SBAM, and you as entrepreneurs in this forum about all the great things that you're doing as well and how we can work together. So that's what I was doing in Detroit today.
What a great opportunity. Thanks for providing us with an update on your travels today. I want to go back to the Population Commission. There was some news that came out at the end of the week. Can you give us an update on the progress they're making?
Yes, so just as a reminder, our own president and CEO, Brian Kelly, sits on the Growing Michigan Together Council, also known as the Population Commission. And they were tasked by Governor Whitmer earlier in the year to come together and try to find innovative ways to tackle some of our biggest challenges when it comes to a decreasing population. So out of that council, 4 groups were created, to essentially work groups, that is, to go out and assess the landscape and come up with innovative ways to then present to the council that they could narrow in on and then hopefully proceed with here in the coming year. So those 4 work groups were higher education, pre-K through 12, infrastructure, jobs, talent, people. And so last week, the council had asked the governor if they could have a 2-week extension. They were hoping to have this wrapped up in November, and now it's looking like more, if we're being honest, with the Thanksgiving holiday, probably like December. And so she did grant them that extra time to put together a report for her. And we know, just because of Brian's involvement in it, the amount of recommendations that these work groups had put before the council are so wide. There's a large breadth and depth of them. And so taking the time to really dive in and decide the direction that this council wants to go, or give a recommendation to the governor on where she should go, it did call for a little bit more time. So we won't be seeing anything come out of the Population Commission right away. But also, I'll mention, we had an owner-to-owner meeting last week here in Lansing, and we were fortunate to have Hillary Doe with us. She is the Chief Growth Officer and works alongside the Growing Michigan Together Council. And she gave us a wonderful update and provided us some real-time information and told us that they were going to be asking for this extension. But it's because the conversations are very thoughtful, and they really want to do the state justice by putting forth ideas that could be put into action in the short term and the long term. And so make sure you check out our owner to owner meetings. You never know who our special guests are going to be. And so we kind of got a sneak peek into this, but we will look for those recommendations to come out probably in the next month. And we're really glad Brian sits on that council to be able to inject the small business voice into that direction.
Yes, absolutely. It was nice to have a little preview from Hillary last week. And I know we're busy planning some future O2O events, so keep up to date on our website. So Kelli, I want to talk a little bit about artificial intelligence.
Yes, please.
I feel like AI and artificial intelligence is dominating the news cycle, dominating the headlines. In fact, some of our newsletters today actually led with some information on AI. And recently, President Biden actually issued a fairly sweeping executive order focused on artificial intelligence. And they positioned it, the administration positioned it as both kind of capitalizing on and managing the risks of AI. And that's kind of similar to how we at SBAM have been approaching it too. So I will go ahead when in a minute, I'll drop the whole FAQ in the chat, but a few of the areas that they're focusing on include new standards for AI safety and security. And they're going to be looking to develop standards, tools, and tests to help ensure that AI systems are safe and secure and trustworthy, and also require developers of our powerful AI systems share those safety test results so that the government can kind of ensure consumers are safe. They're looking to protect us from AI-enabled fraud and deception by establishing standards and best practices for detecting AI-generated content and authenticating official content. We've all heard of deep fakes. They can be pretty convincing, and so helping people understand what's real and what's AI generated will be kind of critical moving forward. And then they're going to establish an advanced cybersecurity program to develop AI tools to find and fix vulnerabilities in critical software. Obviously, SBAM has a lot of a lot at stake with cybersecurity. We bring our members a variety of different solutions to help them in the cybersecurity space. We do recognize that is a big threat to all people, including small businesses. The FAQ sheet also outlined ways that they will work to protect our privacy by prioritizing federal support and accelerating the development and use of privacy-preserving techniques, and also strengthen the research and technologies used for privacy preservation. And finally, they'll evaluate how agencies collect and use commercially available information, including information they procure from data brokers. So that's something we'll keep an eye on too, as we help our members navigate how we can and cannot potentially use data that we collect moving forward. I know privacy policies and data usage is certainly something everybody should be taking a really close look at. They're going to ensure responsible and effective government use of AI as well, and they outlined what they'll be doing in that space. So again, we'll share the fact sheet. There are quite a few more areas of focus that the Biden administration outlined, but I just want to let everyone know that we're focused on helping our members realize the benefits of AI, but also maintaining safe IT systems. So watch your email, watch our socials soon. We have a great webinar in the works for the end of this month that will showcase AI basics and offer practical applications for small business use. So stay tuned for that, and we'll do our best to keep you updated. And so Kelli, AI, you can't have AI without internet, right? So I'm hoping you might have an update on our work with broadband.
Yes, so Brian and I have both touched numerous times on our relationship with the Michigan High-Speed Internet Office, which is housed within the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity. And so a reminder that we had pulled together a broadband task force numerous months ago at this point to submit to the Michigan High-Speed Internet Office. They were awarded by the federal government a $1.5 billion grant, the largest that has ever been seen in Michigan, to essentially follow through on the federal government's Internet for All initiative. And so the Michigan High-Speed Internet Office is tasked with all the ins and outs of trying to find underserved and maybe are served but not well, and essentially upscaling it and making sure that by, I believe it's 2030, that 95% of all of Michigan's landscape would be supported by broadband. And so there are so many numerous facets that come along with that. Right now, the Michigan High-Speed Internet Office, now that they know that the money is going to be allocated, is charged with putting together a plan to submit to the federal government about how they will use those funds collectively across the landscape in Michigan. I believe the last time I talked about broadband in Michigan, I brought up the fact that Michigan is so wide-ranging in our cities, in our topography. We have the most rural to the most urban, and then everything in between. And so the Michigan High-Speed Internet Office is taking a look at all those communities, what's done well, what's not done well, what needs to be infrastructure wise brought up to scale, what needs to be completely rebuilt from the ground up. And so last week I did sit in on a round table with My High, which is the short version of their name. And just I want to hit on some of the goals so that you can fully understand and envelop here what they're trying to do. So their goals with this grant is to expand reliable, sustainable, and scalable high-speed broadband infrastructure across the landscape. They want to also increase digital skills of Michiganders by offering classes, by offering whatever those may need in order to feel that they have digital skills to utilize broadband once it's in place. Promoting affordable broadband services, supporting equitable access to devices, and empowering consumers with accessible online content. And so their objectives are to ensure universal availability of broadband to every home, business, institution, and community, and that we are ensuring 95% of households adopt a permanent connection at home by the year 2030. And so there's a couple different things that have to happen in this plan that they're focused on at the moment. And they're their priorities is how they're phrasing it. So they need to reduce barriers to broadband deployment. That could be it could be trees, it could be, infrastructure under the ground. It could be anything, right? Maximizing the use and reach of federal funds. It could be promoting digital equity and inclusion, deploying resilient and sustainable broadband infrastructure, and empowering communities through engagement and involvement. And so that's another piece of this puzzle that they're trying to tackle. We have some communities, and we put this in our broadband task force, that will be ready to put their own plan together in their communities because they have regular serving staff within their cities and townships that are well equipped to partner within their communities with existing partners. But then we have very rural or poorer communities that rely on volunteer leadership that don't have the ability to be able to put a plan together or know where to start. And so they're really focused on putting what I'll call advocates within communities to help people build out what their infrastructure plan would look like to receive broadband services. And so we've been really pleased that the Michigan High Speed Internet Office has heard what our task force said and is implementing little things here and there that we put in our report to help uplift communities so that they are receiving broadband and able to execute and use it in short order so that nobody's left behind. And so we continue to enjoy a really healthy relationship with the folks over at My High. We're very grateful to them. But the next step is the application process. And so I want to encourage you to visit the My High website, and also to encourage your community members that might be involved in this kind of work to visit it as well. They're doing what we call an application pre-registration, which basically is it collects all the necessary data for those that might be involved in deploying broadband resources, whether it's the infrastructure piece, the planning. And so it's like collecting financial capability, managerial capability, all the basics, so that when the federal government says go, people that are interested in this project will already have their application uploaded. So all they have to do is go back in and specify the project and the location that they're looking to be involved in order to accelerate the process, essentially. And so in the next few weeks, what they're going to be doing is laying out what they deem to be a project. And it's essentially going to be broken up in what they call hexagons. And so you'll be able to essentially go into a map with where you want to be involved in the project and pick the hexagons that you want to help and be a part of. And they will review the plan once the applications start to get up and running. And also we'll be able to eliminate any overlap or to be able to partner people up so that there's not duplicativeness in the process. And so we were able to see a few of the demos the other day, and we really feel confident that they have thought through all the traps in making sure that this process, while it's going to be cumbersome and it's going to take a lot of time and effort, that they have been transparent, that they have laid out all the rules, that they still are waiting on the federal government for a few things, but you can legitimately find almost everything on their website. And community partnerships in this process are going to be imperative in order to get broadband for everyone that lives here in Michigan. And again, people say 95%, what about 100? I think they're trying to be reasonable because the BEAD grant that we've been talking about all along, it does only give money through a certain time period. And so while there is a commitment to make sure that there is 100% access across the board for people who live here in Michigan, this is the start. They are committed to making sure that the infrastructure that is put in place lasts for years to come, that it's not just a quick fix. And so we will continue to sit in on the roundtables, make sure that we are, injecting your voice, but we also want you to inject your own voice into this process. So they have public comment periods. Please make sure that you're watching that. Or if you see something in your community and you think SBAM can be helpful, I'm always available here to contact the My High office for you. We want to make sure that our small businesses are being supported in this project as well, so that you can operate more efficiently. And so that was a lot to update, but we're so encouraged by the progress that they're making and very excited about what is to come through this BEAD allocation.
Yeah, that was a really thorough update, but super important. And I dropped the My High website in the chat. We also shared a link to our task force report so people can see how SBAM has contributed to the conversation. So let's get another update, Kelli. When we were on last Thursday, Brian gave some updates pertaining to energy legislation. What's happened since last week, Thursday?
Yes, so there were a few late nights last week, Wednesday and Thursday specifically, and the House and the Senate really narrowed in on energy legislation. Now, I will say the kind of the linchpin in this was there's two pieces. There's the siting piece, which people often say, what does that mean? That's basically the piece of energy legislation that gets sites ready in Michigan to either house like a solar farm or windmills, or maybe it's a new facility that's, carbon capturing or whatever have you. And then the other piece is essentially all of the energy standards, which was Senate Bill 271, 273, and 502 that Brian talked about. So basically what the House said is we can't move 271, 273, and 502 without the siting piece, which I'll say that's fair. I mean, you got to be able to have, locations that can move towards these energy, essentially what they are mandates, in order to move forward. And so there was a lot of, I'll say, consternation among the siting piece, specifically because that's always been left to locals to decide whether they want those things in their communities. And so we were not sure if that was going to pass. There was a lot of discussion and there were a lot of amendments to the siting piece, but the Democrats did come together, made those changes, and essentially did move the siting piece, which then moved the rest of the energy package. And so that did go through the House. The Senate has to do a few things on their end this week, which we expect they will, and then those will be off to the governor to sign. And she did indicate that she was supportive of the measures that were taken last week. So while we are disappointed because it was not, as Brian said, we felt too stringent, we felt too heavy-handed on the government mandate side of the hand. We're disappointed, but also I want to stress that we have had a lot of legislative success in warding things off that we were worried about in the spring. And so we will continue to, support our utility partners as much as we can. We do fear an increase in rate paying when it comes to this package that was passed. But we also feel very encouraged that some of the things like independent contracting and predictive scheduling and all these things that we were talking about before, that those continue to be stalled at the moment. And so while we are disappointed, we are also encouraged that we're having healthy conversations with leadership on other things that are not moving. And we will continue to have those conversations to make sure that good policy is put in place for a healthy small business climate.
All right, well, we'll continue to follow some of these stories, but let's talk about tomorrow. It's election day. So tell us about tomorrow, where people can maybe view information on their ballots. And then there's some breaking news that came out this morning as well related to 2024.
Yes, so we have some local elections tomorrow. And Sarah, I think I'd ask you to just drop in. The Michigan Secretary of State website does a great job of being able to find and view your ballots. And so if you're questioning whether or not you have an election tomorrow, please feel free to visit that. We encourage everyone to do their civic duty and hope that you get out and vote if you have things on the ballot in your communities. But yes, this morning there was breaking news very early that Peter Meijer has entered the U.S. Senate race on the Republican side. He joins a few other people, Mike Rogers, James Craig, notably, and a few others. But Peter Meijer, as you recall, was the congressman from West Michigan. He was beat in a primary by John Gibbs, but essentially that at the end of the day, that election was won by Hillary Scholten, who now holds that seat. He also obviously is notoriously known for taking on President Trump. And so there's some, I'll say some on the Republican diehard side, some aggravation about Peter Meijer, but also he does appeal to many independents and people that are more moderate. And so the race in the Republican side just got a little bit more interesting. Mike Rogers has kind of been the one that's led the pack since he got involved. But also on the Democrat side, they've got a few in the race too, but Alyssa Slotkin has kind of been rising to the top on that side. So it's going to be a very interesting U.S. Senate race to watch on both the Republican and the Democrat side. But yes, late breaking news that Peter Meijer has decided to get in the race. So we will continue to keep you updated and sit back and watch. And sometimes in these kinds of races, you just pop your bag of popcorn and see what happens. So
Well, some of the races that we don't sit back and watch are those that our small biz pack will support. And it is that time of year where we start to really think and plan ahead for 2024. And so, Kelli, I know you've been really busy in some convening some small groups, and we have a few pack events coming up. Do you want to let people know how they might be able to get involved?
yes, we here at SBAM do have political action committees, and we are gearing up because, believe it or not, in a year from now, we will be involved in numerous House races across the landscape here in Michigan. And so we have great members that host political action committee events for us all over Michigan. We have one in Grand Rapids this upcoming week on Thursday. And then we have another one in Oakland County next week, Friday. And then at the end of the month on the 28th, we will be in Northern Michigan. And so if you are interested in getting involved in our political action activities, learning more about what our PAC does, what our endorsement process is like, and how we try our best to vet and recommend pro-small business candidates to the legislature, we would love to have you be a part of that work. And so come one, come all. It takes a real lift to make sure that we're supporting small business candidates, and we'd love to have you a part of that army as we move forward.
And we'll certainly be hosting other events into next year as well. So just keep an eye out for email, social, website, etc. All right, Kelli, thank you for joining me today. Brian will be back on Thursday. We'll see you here at 3 p.m. Otherwise, have a great rest of your week.
All right. Thanks for letting me join you. Having a great week.